speaking of God and I are one and all of that, so many of us are encouraged to adopt a practice of gratitude, and I have it to the point where it's this constant tape playing in my consciousness when I drink water and sip coffee and hug a friend and take a shower and put on clothes, and I love that. This whole teaching is about creating habits to identify with and welcome more good, and the good is infinite. It's limitless. So what a wonderful thing. Anyway, what do I have for slides today? Pretty. Okay, the seed of perfection and the way it works. Well, so as Aggie pointed out, this is a tradition in the first 4 weeks of every year to go back to basics and to look at what is taught in the introduction of the Science of Mind textbook. There are 4 sections. And if you read them and digest them and distill them and make them your own, that plus the glossary will make you really, really well versed in the science of mind and spirit, which is, as Ernest Holmes would say, not an original thought or even a grouping of them, but rather an amalgam of the best wisdom of ancient and new thought, ancient wisdom and new thought. There are roots in the Christian teachings, and you'll find these things echoed in every world religion, and also in nature and science. That's what's so beautiful, is when we focus on things that are universally true, we suddenly find ourselves seeing and recognizing them everywhere. So this morning, our topic is this idea that there is a seed of perfection within everything and everyone, that it lies within each of us and all of creation. And also, we're going to look a little bit about how this all works for us. And before I step into that, I want to tell you that originally, once again, I had a plan for this morning that I thought was about humor. I thought that this morning's plan was going to be about self-forgiveness, about not beating ourselves up, about lightening up, and remembering that we can use humor and self-forgiveness to move through this journey of evolution and unfolding. Stop beating ourselves up, because we gave that up last year, right? For who we aren't yet. And then something happened.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. What happened was that I got news of the shooting in Fort Lauderdale. And I was speaking with a colleague on the phone who was in tears and in prayer. And I was reflecting how many times we've held a special meditation and a special vigil because one of those things occurred. And now they're so frequent that they are seemingly commonplace. And there might be a temptation at a time like this to say, well, this is a spot where God is not. This is a time when that frilly teaching must be set aside. We have work to do. We have fights to fight. We have justice to go get, or something like that. And yet the truth of the matter, as I understand it, is there is no more important time than right now to know about the seed of perfection that is within every one of us. To know it, to become intimate with it, to identify with it, to come from it, and thereby bring more of it into tangible expression in the world. Humanity is crying out for a cosmology, for a map that says you are here. And this is why you're here, and this is what you're here for. And it is love, it is truth, it is beauty, it is power, it is joy, it is magnificence, it is all good. And so each of us has within us the capacity to become that map, if you will, to become that example, to become that inspiring friend or colleague or neighbor. Now we could geographically and physically get in a bunch of cars and go down to Fort Lauderdale and sit there and maybe bring a microphone and try to tell people in a way that they may not be ready to hear. Or we could remember this, that we are all connected. We really are. We're made of the same stuff. Everybody has a seed of perfection within him and her. Everyone does. And the only way that we could ever harm another individual is when we don't know that. So a way that we could, I don't want to use that word, a way that we could heal and resolve and dissolve these tendencies towards violence and harm is to help more people on this planet know that they are made of God's stuff. That each person has the seed of perfection within his heart and her heart. Because when we know that about ourselves and we embrace our divinity as children of the Most High, and we recognize that it is ours to grow into that and to inherit more and more of our divine inheritance and become more and more the leaders and the teachers, as well as the companions and the friends along the way. And when we embrace that, our own divinity, our own purpose, what happens? We have a cosmology. We have a reason for being. And we also have something within us that could never harm another person. And so, as I so often say, when we get next to someone else and know the truth, what happens is that it wakes up in them. They may not recognize it at first. It may even seem blasphemous, and yet something within them says, that feels right. I am beautiful. I am magnificent. I am a child of God. There is perfection in me. And we also think of it as a seed because this is something that not only has power packed within it, everything necessary to bring about a full, whole, complete, vital, fruitful life. It also has everything necessary within its reach at all times for that to occur. And finally, we can return to the simple metaphor of a seed and say, well, gosh, if there is a seed for all that within me, then all I need to do is tend it. All I need to do is consciously plant it and tend to it. And it'll do what it does. It'll bring forth from within me what it has to offer. I love that Aggie and I had an agreement to pick something from the textbook from a certain chapter, and yet that was the extent of it. And she chose the paragraph. I was like, yeah, I think I'll leave that one out. I'm going to focus on these other two. So I picked two, and she picked the one that comes after, and they all fit together beautifully. So here is part of what this says from Ernest Holmes. This original life is infinite. It is good. It is filled with peace. It is of the essence of purity. It is the ultimate of intelligence. It is power. It is law. It is life. It is in us. In that inner sanctuary of our own nature, hidden perhaps from objective gaze, nestles the seed perfection. Those last four words come from Leaves of Grass from Walt Whitman. Seed perfection. So as I said, we may have been taught that perfection is something we can't even speak of, that we would compare ourselves to it and fail miserably, and that we would be blasphemous to consider the idea that there's something within us that is perfect. Yet we are made by one thing, one power, one presence, one substance, one activity. What else could we be? Because we are free, we are this perfection in its potential form. That's why the seed. In its potential. And it is in our willing planting and tending of the seed that we, in our own time, allow more of that to be manifest as who we are. Okay? As who we are. So here is a little bit about the way it works. The way it works is that if we're going to bring this out into the world, we kind of need to know how that gets done, right? We have discussed the nature of the thing, which, by the way, we were talking about last week as one of the interesting ways that Ernest Holmes refers to the all that is, the thing itself, as being universal energy, mind, intelligence, spirit, finding conscious and individualized centers of expression through us. See, this is how it works. And that man's intelligence is, that could be underlined or bolded, this universal mind, functioning at the level of man's concept of it. This is the essence of the whole teaching. The way that Jesus put that, very simply, was, it is done unto you as you believe. Ernest Holmes goes on to say that he had this revelation that if you look at those words and you meditate on them, it is done unto us as we believe. That the as is the determining factor, not just when, but to what degree. In what way? How? All of the qualifications of our belief. And then believe itself tells us what it is that we are believing. The universe is impersonal. It gives us according to what we believe. It gives back to us according to that. And we're going to talk about that some next week. So here we are. We are conscious, individualized centers of expression. And this intelligence, this universal mind, is the same mind that we use. And we function at the level of our concept of it. Okay? That's a lot of words for it is done unto you as you believe. Conscious, individualized centers of expression. It happens through us. Our intelligence is this universal mind functioning at the level of our concept of it. Now, I was sitting back there during Aggie's meditation asking myself honestly, what am I conscious of in this moment? Consciousness is creative. Consciousness is powerful. Consciousness is pointing our creative power towards something. And so often we go to sleep. So often we become habitual. So often we already have an answer. So often we are unconscious. Eyes open, driving down the road, mind you, going about our business, and yet not really accessing the power that comes with conscious awareness. Conscious awareness. So can we wake up from our slumber? Sometimes we refer to a tragedy or a scary diagnosis or getting fired or someone breaks up with us or something major changes in our lives. We refer to that as a wake-up call because it does bring us back to being more aware more of the time. And that is a good thing. Although we don't need tragedy, we don't need difficult circumstances for that to occur. We can choose it. The thing is that our consciousness has power. And so to the degree that we choose to be awake and aware and make each choice anew, even if it looks just like the other one, we engage that creative power. Now, I happen to leave a few things in my life in the form of habit, such as brushing my teeth, putting on my seatbelt. And yet the rest, why not do it mindfully? Gosh, why not do those things mindfully? It's good for us. It's good for our health. It keeps us in the habit of remaining conscious. Buddhists do it all the time. Be conscious while you're doing the dishes and sweeping the floor. Be conscious. We are present. We are life, present for life. We are truth and love and beauty and power, present. This idea that we are incarnated so that we can embody, express, and experience all of this good. We are here to make manifest the glory of God. Well, because we have the appearance of more than one of us, we get to experience relationship. Let it be conscious. Let it be divine. So then we have individualized. We are individualized because each one of us, like snowflakes, no two are exactly alike. And yet we're made of the same intelligence, the same love, the same substance, the same life. However, the individualization, the individualized part of it means that each one of us has a different perspective. Yes. We have a different gift to give. Yes. We have something unique that only we can bring. Yes. So what if you're here to bring something to this world that it's waiting for, that it desires, that it longs for, that it needs, and you're the only one who can give that talk or write that book or do that favor or lend that hand or lend that ear or whatever it is in the way that that person can hear it. Individualized. Centers. How about centers? I was sitting back there again thinking, what am I identifying with right now at my core? Where am I coming from? There's a slogan in the corporate training world called, what's your come from? You know, it's like, what's your big why? What's your come from? Are you coming from the heart of that seed of perfection, of divinity, as a child of the infinite? Are you coming from the Christ within? Are you coming from the light within? We honor all paths here, and so we're not attached to which terminology you choose. That is up to you, what feels right. And yet there is a light within you. There is a presence within you as a child of the infinite, growing up to be an adult embodiment and expression of it. That's your real come from. So when you choose to be conscious, you recognize that you are an individualized embodiment and expression of this divinity, and you access the center of your being. It's going to be much greater than the personality, than the ego, than all the false ideas that you and I have picked up along the way. You'll know you're there because it feels a greater sense of possibility. It's generous. It wants to love and give and serve. It has no boundaries. Doesn't have any doubts. How often do you come from that place before you open your mouth and move your feet and do what you do? You see, this is compounding. We can say, okay, so, I need to be conscious. I recognize that I'm an individual. I have an identity at the center of me that informs what? It informs how I express. See? Expression then is dictated by the choices that we make before we do that. It's how we show up. And it's not only how we show up, but what shows up as our manifest universe, as our bodies and our affairs, as our circumstances. Because every conscious, individualized, central choice that we make is a pattern. It's an invitation to the stuff of creation to take shape and form around us in a certain way. It is responsive. It is responsive. And so how life shows up for us depends on those choices. And finally, that means that it happens through us. It doesn't happen to us. It happens through us. And again, at times like this, we might say, yeah, but what about that? All I know, all I can say is that I was at that airport 2 weeks ago and not today. All I know and all that I can say is that God, Spirit, Creator, the I Am principle, the all that is present as perfection, filling and surrounding each of those beings who were involved in that circumstance in love. And I can give thanks and I can honor that and I can say, how can I be of greater service to my fellow men and women by acknowledging that my brothers and sisters have been harmed today, that someone was in such pain that he would do such a terrible thing. How can I show up for love and be part of the solution and give thanks for the gift that woke me up and got my attention today and not waste it, not let it be wasted. So our intelligence is this universal mind. There's one mind, and of course we talk about that not as intellect, but as the divine intelligence that has created all, that knows all, and that is all-knowing. And we get comfortable with this idea that we are made by it, out of it, in its image, in its likeness. So there must be something within us that always knows. There's this idea that when we have a question, the answer is also present. When we have a need, the fulfillment is always present. When we have a prayer, the answer is always right there, before we even ask. So as we acknowledge that our mind is our personal use of that, it's like the cosmic internet. We can trust that every time we need to know, we do know. We will and we do. And not in a way that is full of puffiness and pomp and circumstance, but a quiet faith and trust, a knowing that allows us to feel safe, that allows us to feel sure that we're always guided, that our needs are met. See? Then we come from a different place. And finally, we have this idea that we function at the level of our concept of it, so we decide, we choose to cultivate that understanding. We choose to cultivate that understanding because then more and more what is possible will show up as our experience. Now, we're going to find out whether okay. So we go back to this and say that the seed of perfection is hidden within. And we ask ourselves, then, if that's so, what can I do today to tend it? What can I do today to become more familiar with it, to become more intimate with it? One of the basic things that we have been taught for millennia is to be still and know. To turn within. To go to our quiet place. To pray in our closet. You don't literally have to go to your closet, it's symbolic. To go apart a while. And you can do that in the middle of the mall by going into the restroom and praying in a stall. You can do it in the middle of anywhere just by making sure you're not in the middle of traffic. Sit still, stand still, close your eyes, just know. Just know. Every time you hear a news report, whether you see it on a screen, on a page, you hear it on the radio, or it comes from the lips of a friend or coworker, you have an opportunity, and so do I, to know that perfection is present. And to tend that seed with comforting words, and when those won't fall on ears that can hear, you can do that within. You can stop wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and simply know that perfection is present. Elaine sang some of these words from Ernest Holmes. There is a power for good in the universe, and you can use it. I invite you to recognize that that power for good is the seed of perfection that is within you. And so that power for good that is in the universe, in your life, it's you. It's you, it's you, it's you. What does that mean? How will you show up as that power? How will you tend and nurture it? How will you care for it? How will you handle and share its harvest? Its beautiful flowers and leaves and shade and fruit. How will you use that power? That is a noble question with a divine purpose as its answer that is uniquely yours. So I invite you, as you step back into life today, just to remember there is a power for good in the universe, and in my life, it's me. Right? How will you use it? How will you use it? use it. Go in peace.